Well, good afternoon. I think it's, well, not quite afternoon yet, but we have had an exciting day. We've had Tropical Storm Zeta blow through here, and we had a big canopy out in the yard that we had our mowers and my husband's scooter under, and it took it, and so had to go out in the pouring rain and move my scooter or my husband's scooter into the house so it could be in the dry. And we've got stuff blown all over the place. My daughter and son-in-law have a car and a truck, and a tree fell across both of them, but everybody is okay as far as I know. We are all safe, and so we are calling this one a blessing, and I hope all of y'all are safe too. Today I am going to make meatloaf. I've been promising this to my dear friend Judy Hall for several weeks now, and so today I'm going to show you how I make meatloaf. Okay, let's get started on our meatloaf. And I have chopped up an onion. Now sometimes I grate the onion, but today I just chopped it. If you get the pieces in it too big, sometimes it'll make the meatloaf not stay together while it's cooking. So that's why I chop mine kind of fine. And in this bowl, I have it's about a little over 1.5 pounds of ground chuck. This was a 2-pound roll of ground chuck, 80/20, and I fixed one hamburger steak out of it for Eddie last night for dinner. So this is what's left. So I am going to put my chopped up onion in with the ground beef. And mix that in a little bit. Now let me rinse my hands off a little bit because I'm going to be handling some other stuff, and I don't want to get anything contaminated. So this is breadcrumbs, and this is just plain breadcrumbs. Now when I open breadcrumbs, I label the top on what date I opened it so I'll know how long they'll be fresh. They are dried or dehydrated, so they'll last a long time just in your cabinet, but like any bread, you know, bread goes stale. So just taste them before you use them again, make sure they haven't gone stale. So I'm gonna put about 3/4 of a cup of just plain breadcrumbs. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I absolutely hate to have my hands in raw eggs. So I'm going to put 2 eggs in this, but I'm going to go ahead and mix my eggs into my milk so that I don't have to feel those raw eggs squishing. And that's 3/4 of a cup of milk. Now what the milk does is it rehydrates those breadcrumbs. So I'm just going to get a fork, and I'm going to mix those eggs into the milk, just like that. All right, so I'm going to pour that. And I may not need quite all of that, so I'm going to wait and see. Then I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce gives a depth of flavor to almost anything you're going to cook as far as savory dishes. And then I'm going to put about a 1/2 cup of ketchup. Now I'm going to salt and pepper it a little bit. And as far as ingredients, that's really all that goes in there. You can put bell pepper in your meatloaf if you want to. A lot of people love it. We don't particularly care for bell pepper in it, so I don't put it in ours. Now, when you're working with fresh ground meat, I will always tell you, don't work it too much because you don't want to make it tough. This is the one exception. When you're making meatloaf out of ground meat, you want to get your hands in there and work it really good because you want that meat to hold together. You don't want it so tender that the meatloaf falls apart when you try to cut it. So I'm going to get my hands in there, and nothing replaces hands in something like this. Now I can tell already that's going to be enough milk, so I'm not going to put the rest of that milk in there. So that would have been about a 1/2 cup of milk to this amount of ground beef. Just get it all incorporated really well, just like that. You're gonna think that this is a little bit too moist or a little bit too soupy, but it won't be. All right, now it's time to put it in our loaf pan. So let me give my hands a quick rinse. Now this is just a glass or oven-proof loaf pan. I've had that probably for 30 years. You can use a glass pan, a metal pan, or even a disposable pan if you want to. But this one works well. And that one's going to be the perfect size for that amount of meat. Look at that. Now I take my finger and run a little trough around it, the top of it like that, so that when the grease starts bubbling up around it, it'll fall right into that little trough, and then I can pour it off easily. So the last step for me, now a lot of people use tomato sauce on top of their meatloaf. Some people will make a glaze out of tomato sauce and brown sugar, but we just like ketchup, and we like lots of it. So I'm gonna put the whole top full of ketchup, and now it's time to put it in the oven. I've got the oven heating, it's already preheated to 350 degrees. So I have our meatloaf in the oven at 350, and I've set our timer for 45 minutes, and actually I'm going to check it at about 30 minutes so I can pour some of the excess grease off of it. But I'm going to start checking the temperature of it at about 45 minutes. I anticipate it'll take at least an hour for it to be done, but and I wanted to tell you too, if you don't have breadcrumbs, don't panic, it's fine. All you need to do is just make some toast in your toaster or in the oven, and just grind it up in the food processor or chop it up or whatever you want to do. That's all breadcrumbs is. It's just dehydrated or toasted bread. So I'll be back soon, and I'll let you know how our meatloaf's doing. Okay, it's been about 42 minutes. I've had the meatloaf in the oven baking at 350. And so now I'm going to take it out of the oven, and I'm going to pour off all that excess grease. See that little trough? Let me get the camera down here where you can see it. See that little trough I made around it is just full of grease. So I'm going to pour that excess grease off so it can start browning around the edges a little bit. Now this is when I'm going to start taking the temperature of the meat. And if you don't have a meat thermometer, these things are really inexpensive. You can get fancy ones, or you can just get these small ones like this. It gives you the internal reading on the meat, on how hot it is. So I'm going to stick that right in the center, not all the way down, but right in the center. And I can tell already this is nowhere near done. So that's up to about 130 degrees, and that is not high enough. So we're going to stick this back in there, and I'm going to turn the timer on about 20 more minutes. And we'll see you from there. All right, it's been 20 more minutes, and I took the meatloaf out and I drained the grease off of it again. So now we're going to take our thermometer and insert it in the middle and see what the temperature comes up to. You can, I hope you can see that the temperature is now up to close to 145 degrees, which is still not enough. This ground meat is going to have to be up to 160 degrees to be well done, and we want meatloaf well done. So we're shooting for 160 degrees, so I'm going to pop it back in the oven. At this point, I'm going to turn the oven up to 400. I'm going to put a little bit more ketchup on the top because we love a good thick topping on the top of it. And hopefully that'll brown this on the top a little bit. And we'll be okay, I checked the temperature on our meatloaf, and It needed about 10 more minutes, and so now I'm going to take it out. And
Hello.
this is my grandson Wade. He is my #1 Meatloaf fan, right, Wade?
Meatloaf is life.
Meatloaf is life.
Meatloaf is meat life.
Meat life. I agree. He loves meatloaf.
Keep the grease
So,
out.
all
You're
right.
having a heart attack.
That's right. Okay, now our thermometer, Wade, can you see what it's on?
It's on 165.
Almost 170 degrees, and that is perfect. So we're going to let the meatloaf cool down, and when it cools down, we're going to slice it and show you what it looks like. Right, Wade?
Mm-hmm. All right. Now that the meatloaf is ready, we're going to cut it up. Right, G?
So we cooked this at 350 for 45 minutes to start with. Then we did 20 more minutes, checked it, and it was only at 130 degrees. So we did 20 more minutes, and then it was up to 165 degrees. So that's perfect. So now we've let it cool down a little bit, and we are gonna cut it. Looks yummy, doesn't it, Wade? So let's cut a piece out and see what it looks like.
And you don't have to put as much ketchup as G does on it.
No, you sure don't. We like lots of ketchup on ours, don't we? And that ketchup, when I turned it up to 400 degrees, it kind of caramelized that ketchup. Now, I like the end piece. And look at that.
It's like bread.
Wade, what do you think?
It looks good, but if I was eating that, I would get a bit of ketchup off the top.
Okay, so you don't want a lot of ketchup on yours, so maybe you would want the second piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And scrape a little ketchup off.
Yeah, ketchup isn't my favorite part.
Okay. So what do you think?
It's pretty good.
Mashed potatoes with it in a little while, and we'll be all set, won't we?
I recommend a medium amount of ketchup, like not too much, not too little.
Yep. Sounds good to me. All right, you guys enjoy your meatloaf. Judy Sprouse Hall, this is for you. I love you, my friend.